Today we talk about the strongest throwing arms of players that I've played with.
Hey, what's up, fellas? How you doing? Man, Antonelli here.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? How we doing? Answering your questions today. Today's question is, who had the strongest throwing arms of players that I've played with during my career? So I've thought about this for a little bit, and there's probably 5 or 6 guys that really stand out as having absolute hand cannons, we'll call it that. Some of the best arms I've ever seen in my life. So we're going to go through it. A couple of these guys were minor league players. Some of them made it to the major leagues, and then there's a couple other guys that I saw at the major league level. So let's go through the list. The first guy that comes to mind is this player, Jordany Ramirez. All right, I play with Jordany in the minor leagues with the Padres. He was a center fielder. He's one of the best defensive center fielders I've ever seen in my life. He may be the best defensive center fielder. He probably is. And I've had a chance to play with and play against a lot of really, really good ones. I played with him in Lake Elsinore when I was in high A with the Padres. This guy made any ball that was hit the center field, he caught it. He went and got everything. And he had one of the best arms I've ever seen in my career. Probably the first guy I played with that when he threw the ball, I was like, what the hell was that? Like, absolute cannon. Never made it to the major leagues, I don't think, because he couldn't hit, but he could defend like crazy. And actually, I ran into him later in my career. I think he signed with the Astros, and they made him a pitcher. And he was throwing one day. I saw him on like a side field at spring training. He's throwing about 100 miles an hour, but balls were like going off the backstop and all over the place. But he had a absolute cannon, one of the best arms I've ever seen. Second guy that comes to mind is someone on that same team, Matt Bush. So Matt Bush is in the big leagues now. He's a reliever. I think, is he with the Rangers? He's with the Rangers. He was with the Rays for a little bit, then he was with the Rangers. He was the first overall pick in the Major League Draft back when I was with the Padres, and we played together in Lake Elsinore. He was actually a shortstop at that time. Same thing. Wasn't really a good hitter. Wasn't a great fielder, but had one of the most special arms I've ever seen in my life. I can remember another time when ball was hit the left field. He was a cutoff man. He gets the ball and throws a guy out at the plate. He must have thrown the ball 100 miles an hour. And this thing freaking zinged. I'm playing second base. This thing zings across the infield, out at the plate. And it's one of those throws where it's just a special throw. Like, I've played baseball at that point a long time, and I've really never seen somebody throw a ball that fast. He might have even thrown harder than Jordany. It's close. They're probably pretty close. They both had ridiculous arms. So, absolute cannon. And actually, the story with him is he was an infielder again. He got drafted first overall. We had him as an infielder. And actually, during that season, we transitioned him over to a bullpen guy. So like I said, he wasn't hitting very well at all, and he wasn't a great fielder, but he had a special arm. And so we're playing one day against the Stockton. Was the Stockton A's? No, it wasn't the Stockton A's. Who was it? It was, where were we? Gio Gonzalez was pitching for the other team. So he was in the minor leagues. Maybe it was Stockton. I don't feel like it was. It wasn't Stockton. Where was it? It was someplace in California. But it wasn't the Stockton A's, and I can't remember who it was. Whoever Gio Gonzalez played with in the minor leagues, that's who we were playing against. See if you guys can figure that out and put it in the comment section below, because I'm having a mental block right now. But anyways, I remember that day we were out taking BP, and finally, like, we were always saying, like, why doesn't Matt Bush like pitch? Why he's got the greatest arm I've ever seen. And finally that day we let him throw a bullpen. I remember the whole team was like, we're hitting BP and he's off on the side throwing a bullpen, and we're all looking over there watching him, and it looked like he was throwing about 120 miles an hour. I think on the gun they said he was like 95 and up. And that was kind of like the beginning of him never picking up a bat again and just becoming a pitcher. And then he went on and pitched for a bunch of other teams, and is now in the big leagues. But he had a ridiculously special arm as a position player. And again, we're just talking about position players, not pitchers for right now. These are just position players that had these really, really good arms. So those were minor league guys. Major league guys, when I was up with the Padres, we didn't have anyone that sticks out to me as like an absolute just crazy arm. But when I went to Baltimore, I played with a couple players that had really, really good arms. So the first guy is Adam Jones. Adam Jones has had a really, really strong arm. And the one play that sticks out to me was early in spring training. Ball was hitting the left center field gap, and he went back to the wall. He basically caught the ball right on the fence, and he just turned from the fence and threw it to second base. And this thing was just an absolute laser beam, boom, right to second base. It almost looked like he wasn't trying, and it was, again, one of those throws when it happens. I vividly can see it right now, and I remember thinking, like, I don't think I've ever seen that before. Like, it was an absolute cannon to second base. So he had a ridiculously strong arm. Nick Markakis actually was our right fielder that year in Baltimore. He had a really, really strong arm too. I don't know whose was better, Adam Jones or his. I just remember both of them. I remember being like, geez, like, there's really strong arms in the outfield on this team. They both had ridiculously strong arms. And the other guy that had a really strong arm that actually he was really young was Manny Machado. So the interesting thing about Manny Machado, when I played with the Orioles, he had just been drafted, like, I don't know what he went overall, third overall, second overall, I don't know. He went really high in the draft. And then I played with him his first spring training. And he wasn't in Major League spring training with us. But I remember we're in spring training, we're probably about a week in, and somebody got hurt. One of our infielders got hurt, and they ended up bringing Manny up from the minor leagues to be in Major League camp. And it wasn't like he was coming up permanently. It was almost like they didn't want to rush him or anything. He'd just been drafted, 8 months before that or so. And so I remember in spring training, like, we've got our clubhouse, and they had him like off in like this little separate clubhouse. Like, it wasn't even a clubhouse. It was like this little baby locker room. Like, we didn't have enough lockers, I guess, in the locker room for him. And everyone knew that he was a high pick, but no one really had seen him play before. So, like, when you think of Manny Machado now, like, you're like, okay, absolute stud. But I remember at that time, like, a lot of guys, I know I was thinking, I was like, oh, Manny Machado, high pick. I wonder if he's good. Because I've played with a lot of guys that were really high picks that were good players, but not great players. Probably the same thing they say about me, like, oh, he's a high pick, but he wasn't a great player. But the first time I saw Manny Machado play with us, so again, he's over in like this side locker, and he's like he's like not part of the big league team in spring training. And then he comes out one day, and he was probably like 18 or 19 years old. I remember I saw him field and throw one ball, and I was like, okay, that dude is special. Like, that's not the normal, like I said, baseball is different. Like, not every first round pick. A lot of them have tools and stuff, but I've seen plenty of first round picks that when I watched them the first time, I was like, oh, that guy's okay, but he's not like ridiculous. The first time Machado threw a ball, I was like, that dude's ridiculous. Like, the way the ball came across the infield, it was like so easy. Just field it and like just do this, and the ball's like flying across the infield. So that was another guy that at that age, and I never saw him. I never really played with him or against him other than that year. So now that he's an absolute stud, I mean, everybody watches him throw now, and they're like, wow, that guy's got one of the best arms in the league. But this is like fresh out of high school, basically, 18, 19 years old, with an absolute cannon that stood out among all these major league players. Just like, that dude can really throw and really hit, really field, and do everything. That's why he is who he is. So those are the five guys that really stick out in my mind, that the first time I saw them, I said, those arms are like super special. And there's been other guys that I've played with that have had good arms, but those are the five that really stick out in my mind. One guy that I got to play with a little bit was in spring training, was when I was with the Washington Nationals, was Pudge Rodriguez, who had an absolute hand cannon. But I played with him like when he was at the very, very end of his career, so I didn't really get to see like the absolute. I wish I played 10 years earlier with him when he was with Texas and was just an absolute stud. When I played with him, he had looked like he had lost. I remember him being, when I watched him on TV with the Rangers, he was just like this stocky dude. And then at the end of his career, I saw, it might have been his last career, I don't know what year he retired, but he was much smaller, still had a really good arm, but didn't have the absolute bazooka that he had, when he was younger. So that's one guy I would have liked to have seen. And Bryce Harper was with us that year also, but he had just been drafted as well. And so, and he was really young. I didn't really get to see a ton of him when I was with the Nationals. Probably played a couple of games with him, so wasn't able to really see his arm. But again, another guy that has an absolute cannon. So those are the guys that come to mind. Let me know in the comment section below other guys that that you can think of. I mean, I guess there's a bunch of guys that I can think of that have great arms. I just haven't personally played with them. So that's how it goes. Anyways, hope this helps you guys out. Share the video with all your friends. Subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up. I'd appreciate that. Check out the description box below. We've got a bunch of stuff down there for you guys. We've got a deal going on with Plate Crate. We've got a Patreon page where you guys can support the channel by clicking the link down there. We've got a bunch of other stuff for you guys, and that's all I got. So thank you again so much for watching. I appreciate it, and we'll talk to you later.